We are officially recording. You should all see the red little dot and you give your permission for us to record. For those who don't know me, and I think everybody on here does so far, but I'm Carice, the marketing manager here at Sashco for our log products. And we're glad to have you guys on talking about some operational excellence. Shout out to Tim, our COO, CFO. He's been very busy teaching our Sashco Internal Academy the last few days. So he's staying late tonight. They're still going in there in the pub right now, actually. And then thank you to Wayne, who rushed back. Hopefully didn't break any laws too bad from cheerleading practice for his 9-year-old to be with us here tonight too. So we're going to be talking about operational excellence, how to do more with what you already have. I don't know about you guys, but Sashco has a difficult time finding people these days. And it seems everything in the news is unemployment is high and people don't have jobs. And that is just not true for us. And I know not true for you guys too. You guys are having a hard time finding workers. So what kind of improvements can you make with what you already have to try to get more done? And so Tim's going to do a review of some lean principles that we actually cover in our business focus class in more depth. We're going to be going through it a lot faster tonight. Repetition is always important. And seeing some feedback, I guess, from other contractors who have made some improvements and how they went about doing that. And then we'll have some time for an open forum. And of course, I will be putting in a shameless plug for Zero Failures Business Focus at the end of this, but not until the end. So hang tight until we get there for me to do my thing. So everybody, I'd ask you to mute if you aren't already, except for Tim and Wayne, of course, just so that we don't have any background noise or anything like that. So, all right, I am going to let you guys, Tim, take it away.
Oh, that was, you covered the agenda already. Okay.
I covered the agenda already. Here's the
give me a chance to get
really
prepared. All right, here we go. Are you doing the, do I have control? No, you have control.
I've got all the control.
For those that have been to the business focus class, this will be a quick review. For those that haven't, this will be just a quick overview. And to cover operational excellence in 10 minutes is impossible. So we're just going to touch on a couple of key concepts and then try to apply it to your business, which I am no expert. So if I say something wrong or inappropriate that doesn't really fit, please excuse me. I hope somebody will correct me. So definition of lean. Lean manufacturing actually came from the Toyota production system. They kind of perfected this strategy around operational excellence manufacturing, just-in-time manufacturing. So definition of lean, we're just shortening it up from what we've done before. It's a systematic method to identify and eliminate waste. And so, go ahead, Chris. So how do you do that? So kind of at the very high level, you spend more time doing value-added activities and you find ways to minimize or eliminate time that you spend on non-value-added activities. And so a lot of people, before they kind of start this journey, they feel like, well, it's all necessary. You know, that's what we need to do to get the job done. And so this is giving you a model by which to begin to look at the different activities that you do in order to perform a job. And the objective here is to reduce the cycle time that it takes to finish a job from front to back. Front being meeting with the customer, quoting it, preparing it, getting the materials, getting on site, doing all the work to restore the home, billing, getting the cash, all of that cycle time of all. Can you go back, Reese, one?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. All right, so spend more time on value-added activities, less time on non-value activities. And the trick is to kind of start to see them for what they are. So let's take a moment to define some of these terms and try to relate to the log home restoration business. So value added. Just so before we start here, when I say value added, I'm not saying valuable, because we all, every single one of us, do things that are both value added and non-value added, and starting to see them for what they are is the key here. So a value added activity got to meet 3 criteria. 1, it's an activity that changes the form, fit, or function of the product or service that you are providing. So if we're talking about log home restoration, it's stuff that you're doing where you're actually touching the wood, blasting, stripping, secondary prep, staining, finish, and sealing. It's when you're actually touching the wood. Driving to the job site is not value-added activity. It's not what your customers are actually paying you for. So I try to put it in the frame of mind of like when you're literally touching and doing something to the wood, that would be a value-added activity. So second thing, it's got to be performed correctly the first time. So if you have to go back to the job site and do some rework, all that time that you're putting into the job to do it a second time is just money out of your pocket, as you guys all know that. 3, the customer's got to be willing to pay for it. So if they're not explicitly willing to pay for it, it immediately puts you in this place that something you're doing is non-value added. It doesn't mean that you don't need to do it. It just means it's non-value added. So go ahead, Carice, next. So if it doesn't meet the criteria, it's non-value added, and it just adds cost to the job. It really adds time, and that actually adds cost. Next. So if it's either value added or it's non-value added. It's kind of binary. It's either one or the other. And I think most people, when they start looking at this thing, they think, well, all these value-added activities really equal 60, 70% of the work that I do on a job. It's not. In the best case scenario, some of the world-class manufacturers, only 20% of what they do is value-added, and the rest is non-value-added. A typical manufacturer, and I say manufacturer because that's what we do, but in some regards, log home restoration is a manufacturing process too. You take raw materials, you convert it into a finished product. It's just a little bit different. So the reason I say it's 80 to 95% of any process is non-value added activity, that's just to give you the scale of what we're talking about and the opportunities that are available to take this stuff out of your process. So there's 2 forms of non-value added activity, necessary and unnecessary. And the reason why we say there are 2 forms, it gives you an idea of what to do about it. So a non-value added activity that's necessary, your job is to figure out a way to make it faster. That's it. So if it's a process that doesn't touch the wood, how can you make it faster? So getting stuff out of your truck and staged at the job site, you're not touching the wood. It's non-value added activity, but it's necessary. So how can you figure out how to make it faster? This is stuff that Wayne has done for years, figuring out how to make his processes faster. Because if you eliminate the non-value added time, it gives you more time to spend on the value added stuff, and it shortens up the cycle time of doing the job. Okay, so examples of non-value added but necessary stuff. Quoting the job. It's necessary, right? But you're not touching the wood. You're not literally transforming the product. It's completely non-value added, but it is necessary. So then the key is, how can I make my quoting process faster? So I think Wayne uses stuff like templates and tools, pre-built tools, so that he uses software and estimating tools, all of it around making the quoting process faster. He's probably fine-tuned his process so that he spends less time quoting, more time doing. Taping, staging materials, going up and down ladders, mixing stain, walking to the truck. This is just a small sample. But if you really start to look at the process of the job site And all the time that's spent when you're literally not touching the wood, that's this realm of non-value added. Next. The second form is non-value added, and unnecessary. And I put in quotations here, given your current process. I actually meant to say that in the non-value added but necessary. My apologies, made a mistake. So non-value added but necessary is what I should have said, given your current process, because you can sometimes find ways to make that non-value added but necessary actually unnecessary through process improvement. So just put that section up there. The second one is non-value added but unnecessary. And many people, when they hear this for the first time, say, well, everything I do is necessary or I wouldn't do it. But I guess I would want you to ask the question, next, Carice. I like to ask the question, do we really need to do this? What problem is it actually solving? How can I not do this? Is there a way to not do this and still deliver the product to the customer and what they're paying for? So it might be production reports. It might be unnecessary paperwork that doesn't add value to the process with the homeowner. I don't know. We find it in our business. We've found quite a bit. And when we do, we just don't do it anymore. And then we wait for people to scream, why isn't it getting it done? But it's amazing when you ask the question, how much you can find that isn't actually, it's something that you do because you think you need to do it, but the homeowner doesn't actually value it and it doesn't add value to the process. Next.
So let me
jump in anytime here, by the way.
Let me jump in here quickly. Just tell you guys, I sent a chat out, but you have a chat feature there. If you have questions and you don't want to forget them, feel free to type those in. I'll unmic. I'll tell everybody unmute at the end too. But don't forget your questions, because I do that myself. Oh yeah, I should ask a question about that, and then I don't write it down. Well, here's a way to write it down so we'll all know.
Can you go back one slide, Carice?
Sure.
So Wayne tells a story, if I remember Wayne correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I remember before he started this journey, it would take 2 weeks to do one typical sized house. Is that correct, Wayne?
Oh, right, yes.
And now in his current set of processes, he's getting 2 houses done in 1 week, same size.
Correct.
Same crew?
Same number.
Or is it 4 crews?
Same number of people swinging brushes and running equipment.
Okay. So the only way to do that, well, there's 2 ways to do it. You can work the 4 times as many hours, or you can take non-value added steps out of your process so that you spend more time on the wood doing value added stuff so that the overall job time decreases. Do you want to speak to that at all, Wayne?
Well, just to say that I agree with what you're saying, and I'm sure there's going to be questions getting into nuts and bolts. We found in recent history that earning more money, having bigger crews, working harder isn't producing the same amount of buying power at the end of the process. We actually glean more benefit from reducing waste and eliminating needless activity than we do just constantly being busier and busier. So for us, it's been a decided change to focus on savings, reduction of waste, and coupled with growth, business growth, and adding people and adding trucks and things like that. But being careful to save, because from our point of view, if we can save $1, that's $1 that we don't have to pay taxes on. It's actually $1 of profit. So for us, it's $1.20 or $1.22, depending how we do the formula. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Does to me.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Carice.
Yep.
So in this world of non-value added activity, the practitioners of lean have identified 8 different wastes that most of these non-value activities can be found in one of these 8 forms. So I'll try to quickly describe them. And then Wayne, if you don't mind chipping in and relating it to something on the job site, please feel free.
Okay.
So the definition of defect is you do something that's not right the first time. So can you give me an example on the job site, Wayne?
Well, sadly, yeah, I think any of us contractors could tell you examples. Callbacks are the worst kind of defects for us to find out about, because typically we've left the job site, we're now somewhere else, and it's a total loss of time and money to have to go back. So that defects really erode the profit at the end of the job. Obviously, processes that are defective, equipment, we carry backup equipment with us because of defects in materials or supplies, equipment. We overbuy product. We have a warehouse full of inventory ready to ship on a moment's notice. We expect defects will occur, but if we can anticipate them and then deal with them while the crew's still there, if it's a service defect, it's just going to save us money.
So the advice that I would give my crew is, if you're generating defects, capture them, spend a little time to get to root cause analysis, and then update your process to eliminate that defect if you can. But most people just fix the defect and move on to the next job. Spending that little extra time to do a what can we learn and how can we eliminate that the next time? It's a long-term battle, but it will yield tremendous results. All right, next.
Hey, Wayne,
Yeah.
just one thing that I heard you say, and I think it's been a theme at Business Focus, is I heard you say that the focus shifted from the top line revenue to the
Yeah.
bottom line.
Yes.
And it seems that common with contractors and applicators in this business, there is somewhat of a bravado of the top line, regardless of what is happening with the bottom line. Right? I added another crew. I hit $1 million in revenue, which are good feats, right? And this slide, the 8 Wastes of Lean, is hitting the expense structure of the profit and loss statement, right?
Right.
So it is hitting that piece that directly leads to bottom line. So anyway, that's just something I was hearing and wanted to add.
I happen to be sitting in my office. Hold on, I'm gonna reach over here. I'm rarely at a desk that isn't rolling down the highway. This is what we call an after action report. This is what a team leader has. You can create your own, but they keep track of every bucket, every bag of media, every hour that's spent on the job. It all gets written onto this sheet, which stays with the project. And at the end of the day, we have a record of what's working, what's not working. On the back, they have an area to fill out problems that we've encountered. And then we fix the problems in terms of a permanent solution. And it's documented on the job site so that it's not lost getting back to wherever I am. I'm not on every job. So if it isn't written down and defects aren't corrected, it doesn't happen. And then Nick, you're correct. We've seen, particularly post-COVID, we're seeing a degree of efficiency in focusing more on what's left over at the end of the job. What's the real profit? Just making a lot of revenue, you can make $1 million, but if it takes $1.5 million to make it, you're obviously moving backwards. So we're not at all, we're interested, but really not infatuated with gross revenue. We're looking at more how we can fix the work processes and the systems and eliminate the waste. So at the end of the day, we're making more profit on working fewer hours or smarter hours.
That's a great point, Nick. All right, let's go on. Overproduction. So by the way, that downtime is an acronym for the 8 Ways. So you'll probably see that in a second here. Overproduction is doing something sooner, faster, or more than required by the next step. So in this case, since you guys don't manufacture components, and when you start a job, you generally work it to completion. I would say in this case, overproduction might mean over ordering of materials because you got an unreliable supplier and you can't predict what your customers are going to do. And so you end up ordering things before they're actually needed. And what you end up with over the course of time is a lot of extra.
If only there was a product called FlexTint, that would be.
Nick,
Well,
that was going to be my call in just a little bit. But anyways,
Yes, I
no
did.
hard selling tonight, people.
no, but it's interesting because we take these concepts and we've actually done some product development around it.
Yeah.
But in the genesis of the ideas around that came from these slides. So the next
Yeah.
waiting. Yes,
Yeah.
wait.
We do have one area of overproduction that I think contractors can relate to. The crew members that are on the job site and team leaders that are out in the field doing the work, they love to be nice and they love to give things away. They don't see us giving it away, but this occurs when we're quoting the job and we're not specific on whether we're doing the decks, whether we're filling the carpenter bee holes, whether we're going to fix that rot pocket that we discover. We want to be generous at the corporate level and work that into our overall plan. And then in the field, when the homeowner is approaching the worker, just taking a few moments to stop and do something else, we're overproducing something that we can't bill. So while respecting their flexibility to be kind and nice, they're essentially giving away corporate assets. That's the kind of overproduction that we have to watch. That's another area of overproduction.
All right, thank you. Next one, waiting. So this is waiting. So the process stops because you're waiting for something. You're waiting for a homeowner approval. You're waiting for material to arrive from your supplier. Can you give me some other examples of waiting?
Waiting for stain to dry, waiting for repairs to be made because they weren't cycled into the process at the right point, holding up a crew because somebody didn't make the appropriate chinking repairs at the right point in the process. It's the smooth transition of function so that we don't have people standing around with nothing to do, and then having things to occupy our time. You mentioned the transition that our company made from a 2-week project to a week. That's because while things are drying, if we're on a chemical strip, for example, while that house is drying, we're not standing around with our hands in our pockets. We're somewhere else stripping the next house. So by cycling the work in a systematic method, it can reduce the downtime and the waiting. If someone has waiting time, they're going to be cleaning a truck or labeling product or doing something, even on the job site. I've had people, if they have nothing else to do, they're washing the trucks. They're not going to stand there and just draw pay to do nothing.
So my maybe piece of advice to the group here is, one thing I can tell you, if you don't standardize your process, you will induce waiting into your process just by the fact that you haven't standardized it and figured out a way to sequence. Would you say it's accurate, Wayne?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Non-value added processing. This might be what Wayne was talking about on, doing things above and beyond what the customer is actually asking for and paying for. So, and it doesn't add any value in relation to the contract between you and the homeowner. So we did quite a few things in our production environment that weren't actually adding any value to the actual product we were making. It was just pushing paper, and we weren't doing anything with the information. And we just eliminated it, and it didn't actually change anything. We just stopped doing some certain things because it wasn't adding any value. Okay, next. Transportation is the unnecessary movement of the product. The product in this case might be your supplies. So bringing it up the ladder, bringing it down the ladder, bringing it around to the back side of the house, moving it to the front side of the house. Unnecessary movement of the product. Maybe it's taking it out of the truck at the beginning of the day, putting it back in the truck at the end of the day, and you do that 5 days in a row. All that time that you're spent moving things around is time that you're not touching the wood. Wayne, any examples from your end?
Handling media on a job site, anytime you're moving supplies around, it's just, it's an expense that's not really producing anything. The worst transportation related waste I've seen is when you don't order enough extra product and or the house takes more wood, you didn't accordingly, and we're all standing around waiting on a UPS truck to roll into the job site sometime today. I mean, that's just an extreme case of waste. So
I believe Wayne has told the story that he that he not only has a very, very clear set of materials that go at the job site, but he actually defines where things are going to be staged around the house from a material standpoint.
Right.
All right, inventory. Sorry, go ahead, Wayne.
I said, we don't need to move it twice. I'm from Ohio, and we came up with an acronym here. OHIO stands for only handle it once. Every time you pick it up a second time, it's costing me money.
So inventory, probably not as appropriate in this situation, but certainly for us, having more inventory that's required to finish the job. And the reason why that happens is if you have suppliers that can deliver to you, you give them an order at 5 o'clock in the morning, they're on the job site at 7 in the quantity that you want, you would have no need for inventory. So inventory is really a function of your supplier to deliver in the time and quantity that you need. If you don't have a responsive supplier, you need inventory. Motion is the unnecessary movement of the person. So in our environment, if we have tools that are needed to set up a machine and they're located 15 feet away, every time they go to do that operation, they have to walk over, pick it up, walk back. They've now walked 30 feet, do their thing, then go walk back over, put it back away and go back to the machine. They've now traveled 60 feet to do one step in a process. So very simply, moving that to the point of use eliminates the motion. Now, in the Wayne's world, sorry, Wayne, I don't think I've ever used that before.
Use it again.
Party on. So I believe going up and down ladders, going back to the truck and back to the house, all of that motion waste of people at the job site, what are they not doing when they are walking or going up and down ladders? Wayne?
What are they not doing? They're not adding value to the job.
So they're not touching the wood. They're not doing a
it.
value-added activity. They are doing something else.
Right.
So when there's motion waste, it's just an opportunity to figure out how better to organize the job site. Next. And then this is a whole conversation. I don't want to get into it too much, but the ability to actually engage your teams in the intellectual exercise of how to improve the process. And Wayne has a pretty defined way that he does that. We have a defined way that we do that here at Sashco, but basically don't have it all reside on your shoulders. Engage your teams in the exercise of figuring out how to do it better. So it might mean training them in these concepts and getting them to start thinking with you on how to make it better. Now, Wayne also aligns his incentive program so that he incents them so that if we find ways to reduce costs, they get a share in that. Is that correct, Wayne?
Correct.
Okay. So it's basically engaging all team members in this improvement process. Go ahead, Grace, it's fine. So what are some examples of the way this looks like? So 5S'ing trucks. You are eliminating motion and waiting waste. Going to the trucks and trailers are a non-value-added activity, but necessary tool of the trade. Make finding things faster. By standardizing your trucks, you can, and then teaching your crew where things are at, you can dramatically reduce the amount of time people are spent at the truck getting something. And if you actually standardize your process, you can eliminate most of those going back and forth to the trucks because you've already pre-thought what needs to be at a particular point in the job where, and it can have already be staged at the point of use. And so I was talking about this concept with our director of manufacturing this afternoon. And he said, oh, that's really cool that you're going to be doing that with these contractors. You know, I helped a buddy who had a contracting business, had multiple trucks, and they had this problem of messy trucks. So I went in and helped them do 5S. They standardized their trucks, and then they had actually somebody that overnight would organize the trucks, get them stocked and ready to go, so that their goal was when the guy showed up in the morning, 5 minutes later, they were on the road. because the truck was ready to go and pre-staged with that day's materials. I thought that was a pretty cool concept. I don't know if you do that, Wayne.
No, I wish we do it, but not in 5 minutes. That would be one more job function though.
This is Wayne's shop, his trucks. We're forgiving him for the energy seal there in the truck for today.
What? I can't see that.
Got the picture, Wayne, so we're under no illusions that you guys use other people's products. So still, I should probably send you a free tube of conceal just so that we're covered. But Wayne has talked about, the trucks are the same. They've got the locking sides. Everybody knows where to find everything. Makes a big difference.
And I'm going to guess that Wayne, as part of his after action report and how do you close out a job, probably has some sort of audit process. Is the truck back in the state that it's supposed to be?
Right.
It's just a guess.
I have people that do that, yes.
Yeah. All right,
I'll
next.
point out too, we didn't start with nice trucks. We started with trucks we bought off of eBay. We started with plastic tubs that we labeled and we picked up at Lowe's, and we grouped equipment in tubs, and we've owned every broken down junky trailer that you could imagine. We've been doing this 29 years. So we started out literally buying junk off eBay and trying to make it work. Eventually we found truck styles that suited our purposes. In our case, we needed 4-wheel drive because we're off-road a lot. We needed multiple seat belts with the larger crew cabs. Our service repair truck needed to be a closed-in this case, Knapheide converted truck, because we can actually leave that parked with tools and media in it, and on repair projects, keep things out of the weather. So it's just been an evolution, and we still have room to go. There's still things we need to improve on.
Okay, awesome, thanks. All right, reducing cycle time. So here's an example of, I think we're gonna have an example of a contractor that figured out something, but mixing stain. So when you're mixing stain, what's not happening? You're not touching the wood. So is mixing stain a value added or non-value added activity? If it's non-value added, but it is necessary. So how can you make it faster? So what does that look like? Grace, do you have something to share there?
Well, I wish I had a picture for you, but I can't share. But we have a contractor who has built an automated stain mixing station that is mounted to his truck. And they got longer hoses for their stain sprayers so that they don't have to have a guy who goes by and turns that drill on every so often to keep the stain mixed. And they can start getting things mixed because he has tight lids on it. They can actually be mixing on the drive to the job site. So he's got a little bit extreme with it, but he was tired of taking guys off of the job site, off of the wood, if you will, to mix stain. It was ridiculous.
So great example of it's non-value added, but it's necessary. So then figuring out ways to make the process faster or to take the process out of when you're on the job site altogether. Just a great example of that. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. You just have to be looking for them and then have a creative mind to figure out what can we do next.
Right. And if you think about it with stain mixing, we've gone from stir sticks to drill driven stain mixers, and they've changed the design of the drill driven stain mixers over time that scrapes the bottom faster than the other one so that you're still mixing faster and getting everything in there. So, what are other ways you can do that?
I think too, just another note is that, when you really engage your team, it's a win-win, because all of a sudden they have the satisfaction of solving a problem. Everyone loves to solve problems, and you get the win as the owner that there was a big improvement that is made. So I think engaging the team in solving these problems is a win-win in job satisfaction, as well as actually delivering more profit to the bottom line.
So here's an example of reducing the waste of overproduction and inventory. Remember, having more inventory that's needed to finish the job. we started getting a lot of pictures from our customers, from our applicators, of their sheds, of all the extra stuff that they accumulate through the course of time. And we got a dozen or so at this point in time. And that really kind of started us thinking, what could we do to change that dynamic? So that's when we started coming up with the concept of final tinting at the job site. So neutral base, it can be used in any color application, and then tint at the job site. And yes, it does exist.
It does exist.
We're rolling it out right now.
Can I comment on that as a applicator who is an hour and a half away from the nearest Sashco rep? This is huge.
Yes.
Then that allows me to have enough material on hand that I don't have to wait for an owner to make a decision and then overorder because I'm so far away from Denver. So Scott's been talking to me about this. This I'm excited about.
We feel this is a game changer, actually. So you have enough neutral base in your truck, and then you've got tinting that's much smaller and can be moved from job site to job site. Just taking out that waiting, that over inventory, and really streamlining the job site. So we're pretty excited about that.
You guys will be hearing more about that come June. We actually do have Capture Flex Tint out there now, but with all the allocation issues and raw material shortages, we've had to put the brakes on a little bit. So we're working through that, and also ran into some packaging issues with the Transformation Flex Tint. So we're also working through that. Our promise is to deliver products that work, but
we'll get it right.
We're going to take the time to get it right. So yes, tinting at the job site does exist, and you'll be hearing about that soon.
All right, let's keep going here. I'm a little over. So reducing transportation motion waste. So Wayne uses his lift, and it's designed to get rid of the ladders. You can also stage materials in that. What do you call it, Wayne? The bucket. So once you get up there, you can go back and forth along the lines without having to go up and down ladders, move things. It just takes so much time out. So Carice says scaffolding at first, but I think Wayne would make a very strong case that investment in a lift is one of the best things he's done. But if you remember the very first picture that Carice put on the presentation, it also has a benefit of safety because you can keep your people a whole lot more safety in a tethered lift. So, but that reduces transportation and motion waste quite substantially. Next. Carice, you're going to speak to this one.
I am. So we talked about this a little bit last week when we talked about stain removal, but Mark Nelson up in Wyoming, he's got quite the trailer with his blast equipment, but he's managed to dial in his blasting so that he has practically eliminated any secondary prep. And I say practically because there's still times when he still has to go back in and he has to do some secondary prep. So sometimes it's dialed in prep so that secondary prep is just not necessary, using better tools when you do have to do it. We're beyond the days of sandpaper and into the days of Osborne brushes. Wayne, I think you've dialed in your prep with power washing that you've been able to eliminate quite a bit of secondary prep as well.
Right. And it's very rare for us to even have to use an Osborne brush on blasting jobs. If we do, then somebody did something wrong. It's just
Right.
lost time for us.
Carice, are there opportunities out there to capture that and share, or is that proprietary?
It's not proprietary, but that's a much longer than an hour webinar. But I've got Mark on the hook for talking about that with his blasting. So
I think a ton of people might have some interest in that.
Probably.
Okay, next. Eliminating motion waste of moving equipment around. This would be an example of actually placing equipment that is going to be at the job site in a mobile fashion. So you don't have to unload it, reload it. It's just already on the trailer, and everything that you need for that job is in a self-contained kit.
Mhm.
So what can that look like? Truck mounted equipment, tool belts that are designed for a particular purpose, kits of product that are designed for a particular process. So it's already preset. You just get the bin. You can have them mounted on wheels. You've kind of pre-thought and it's pre-organized. So you get one thing out instead of a series of 15, 10, 15, 20 things. And then you have everything you need to do that particular process.
Tim, I'm looking at this photo of, I believe this is Mark's rig.
Yeah.
I don't think Mark's on here tonight. I'm seeing a few things that might be worth mentioning for contractors who are
Yes.
seeing this for the first time. This, he's got a tow vehicle that's got a self-contained, it looks like a air dryer. If you're running blasting media, then air dryers.
That's the air dryer here. Yeah.
Okay, that's what you know about. Got one pot on there. Now, this rig wouldn't work for our job sites as well as it does his. We have individual air compressors, individual blast pots, because we have to get them around yards and tight areas. But in his case, he's buying his media by the truckload and loading it into the large hopper. Incredible savings there. These blast pots are larger than most. So
Mhm.
he's running a long time without having to refill blast pots. And that hose, that blast hose is a larger diameter than most people are running. So I see he's got it spooled up. He's not moving the pots to the job. He's running the hose to the job. So
Yep.
those are steps that would be worth, thinking through. From what I
And-
understand.
He mentioned last week that he's got what, Carice, like 250 or 300 foot of hose on there.
Yep. Yep. It's quite the setup for him, but he got tired of having to lug that around because parts would get broken, and if you're working on on a cliff somewhere, you're working in the mountains a lot. Alicia and Blake, you guys are familiar with that, right? You can't be lugging equipment all over the place. So a longer hose makes a big difference. But I do go back to just the simple things, a tool belt. Sometimes we don't like to wear those, but when you're up there chinking, having your spray bottle and your trowels, your brushes, whatever with you, that makes a big difference.
So I want to make a comment on this as well. A lot of people associate lean with just cost cutting and being really frugal. I don't see frugality in this slide. I see smart investment. And so the investment really is, don't worry about spending money on the things that reduce process time. That's the right investment. That's a good investment. And because you get that over and over and over again. So it's clear to me that he's committed, right? And so he didn't cheap it up. He probably invested in the right thing that really supports his process.
Yeah, Tim, to further what you're saying, I've talked to Mark about his throughput numbers. I don't know what other contractors are expecting, but we're expecting one operator on one blast pot blowing glass, not counting mask time, just time under the hood, to produce about, on an average, 225 to 250 square feet an hour. Mark's getting almost double that with this system per operator. So in round numbers, he's twice as efficient. He's moving much faster. His rates can be much lower, and he's got it dialed in, as you would say.
Mhm.
That's a great piece of information. Thanks, Wayne.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go. I think then Carice wanted me to kind of give an example of like where you can start. And so next.
Yep. Oh, sorry. I think those.
Oh, I flipped. Yeah,
We're
let's start here, then we'll go backwards.
Yep.
I thought I flipped that.
I
So,
may have messed it up. Sorry.
oh, no problem. So this is an example of a truck or trailer that's been 5S'd. It's organized, it's standardized. There's a place for thing and everything is in a place. If you notice the upper left-hand picture, you see labels. And usually with the use of labels, you can quickly see that something's missing. And And if it's missing, then you can get it replaced at your shop before you go out to the job site and you realize it's missing at the job site. And if that happens, then you got to go back to the shop, and that's just a whole bunch of waiting and transportation and motion waste. So standardizing the truck, thinking through what needs to be there, and only having the supplies that you need would be an example of, and it's not just, people look at this and say, well, they're just really clean people. It's not that. It's not about cleanliness. It's about thinking through what's needed to do the job and having the right stuff in the right quantities. And then it also creates this platform that when your team says, well, we didn't have this, you now have an ability to update the standard and take that defect out of the next time you're at that process. So it creates a platform by which communication can happen within your organization, so that when somebody figures out a new thing, we now think through, okay, where does it go? How do we label it? How do we change our standards to make sure we have it there every time?
Right. And I will call special attention to the use clear bins, or at least see-through, because you waste a lot of time. Even if it's labeled, you still have to, it's what we do. Open the lid, make sure that actually is what it is. When with a clear, at a glance, you can see what's in there. I'm going to call that one out. I'm a big fan. I only use clear storage containers in my refrigerator, people, because then I can see that the mold is growing and I don't have to worry about opening it up and smelling it. I know it's going to be bad and I can just toss it right away. Advantages. Okay. This was from Donnie and Brad with Pencil. They came to the Business Focus and they went back the next week and they went to town. And I wish I could have found some of their before pictures, but I couldn't find them. Their trailer was not at all organized. So they did a great job. And I am told that they've been able to maintain it. So let me go backwards here.
Yeah, so let's definitely talk about maintain. One of the S's is sustain. I will tell you, you do have to have a process in place to be able to audit and maintain once you got to get it organized. Just doing a spring cleaning will be just that. It'll be right back to its normal state if you don't actually change the way in which you manage the trucks. So you do have to change your management process. So here are the 5 S's. So can you just flip down one more to the slide? They may not have followed this process, but this is what we do at Sashco. In order to get into what we call a 5S state, we go through this sequence. So go back up, Carice. So first, we take an area. It might be a work center, a machine area, and we sort everything out. So the people that work that area, they get to make the decision of what we use to do that process or not. So we sort everything out that is not needed for the job. All other stuff is removed. Now there's a whole process for that. There's a red tag area, blah, blah, blah. But it's basically just get everything out that is not needed to do the job. And you'll probably find you have 5 extra of everything. And so define what it is that you need and remove everything else. Shine. For us, we have equipment. So we actually go and inspect the equipment. I'm not sure this is necessary in your area, but shine is you inspect. So it's probably part of his process to turn a truck over for Wayne. He has somebody that shines the truck, which means they inspect, and through their inspection, they detect problems, they correct them, and then they probably figure out how do we make the process better so that we don't have that problem next time. So you got to have an inspection process. Set and order means whatever remains in that space, you define where it belongs and how much should be there. And we use labels, clear bins. We use what's called shadow outlines so that you can see whether something's in its spot or not. So defining it and have a place for everything, and everything's in its place. Then standardize means what do we do on an ongoing basis to maintain the first 3 S's? How do we, on an ongoing basis, make sure that the area is sorted out? We've inspected it. Everything's back in its place. So it might be a closeout process for the job to ensure everything's back in order and cleaned and organized. And then sustain is really the management system around that, either vehicle, trailer, machine, a management system that maintains that state of that area in what it's been defined as. So for us, we'll do an audit, we'll score it, we'll get with the team, we'll provide feedback. They put together a plan over the next week to get that into a better place. And then we audit again the next week and we give them more feedback. And so you just do that over and over and over again, and it seats in that process as a new way of managing that area. So that's what 5S's are.
Now, let me tell you a story about a 5S that did not go well at my own garage. Okay. It took a whole week off last summer to clean out our garage and organize it. And I said to my husband, we really need to label all of these drawers. We need to label where everything goes, because this is not my garage. I don't know where everything goes. He's got so many tools and nuts and bolts and, you know, entire containers and all the equipment. And he said, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a map. And so you can just pull out the map and refer to the map every time. Well, that didn't get done. And so now I have no map and no labels. And guess what? The garage is pretty much back to the way that it was last summer. So I thought about buying a label machine, but I think he really wants to do his map. So I'm just going to let him handle it. That's a 5S that didn't work. I'm just telling you, don't do it the way we did.
Well, you also had different parties with different objectives.
Yeah, details. I think maybe his objective is for me to just stay out of the garage, and I'm fine as long as my car's in there. So maybe if you have people that you don't want in your trailers, don't label them. I don't know how that would work. Okay, so we've come to the end of kind of our presentation time, but we want you guys to turn on your mics, ask questions, give us stories of things. I know, Alicia, you've come to Business Focus. What have you guys done since you came to make some improvements? What are some things that you guys can identify right away? Oh yeah, I already did that and I had no idea really that it had anything to do with business improvement. Share your thoughts, ask your questions. That's what this is here for. So go ahead and unmute yourselves if you like. You can type them in if you want to in the chat. Wayne,
are you really calling me out and making
I
me
am
talk?
calling you out, Alicia, because I know you'll do it. I know you'll do it.
Well, we just made all of our guys go through their trailers and got everything out, get rid of all the junk. And we had a list of things that needed to be in there. And so we did that just in the last couple of weeks. So that's good.
Get ready for the season, right?
That's right.
Alicia, do you have a standardize and sustain process?
No, that's one thing is,
Yeah.
yes, we need to do that. Cause I'm like, okay, these trailers better stay good and clean and organized this season. So how are we going to make that happen?
Yeah.
We haven't figured that one out yet.
It won't happen without the final 2 S's.
Right. I agree. Yes.
And that's the hardest part. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I also think too, I was just thinking about this idea, and I think probably when Tim came to Sashco, there was a learning curve, which was how do we get rid of the defensiveness that comes with feedback, right? So about this trailer audit, right? So here's the trailer audit. Here's the things that are not right. Here's what needs to be improved. And I think it is important to think about feedback and to continue as leaders to instill that feedback is good, it's a gift, and it helps us to improve. Because otherwise, I think the human nature will be defensive and we'll view it as a bad thing. And so that is something to consider. And we certainly not only considered it, had to say, you know, every day before bed, red is good, but every red requires a plan, you know? So I do think that's important. And I thought about the idea of, if you have multiple crews, do you have the opposite crew actually audit the other's trailer to give it fresh eyes? And is that a horrible idea, Wayne? I see you were
No,
shaking
it's
your
not a bad idea. We don't do it. The team members switch back and forth between crews. And
Okay.
we have enough time trying to keep animosity at a minimum, but that's not to say it wouldn't work.
The reality is, it doesn't take forever. Once the 5S mentality is seated in with your team, they'll maintain it themselves because they find value out of it. And but it's just there's a transition period that Nick's referring to for sure.
We might do better with the carrot on the stick, giving them a $50 gas card or food card for the random inspections of their trucks. That might work better for us.
Great point though, Alicia.
Travis, I thank you for your comment in there, Travis. You know, booms, he's going with you too, Wayne. Booms are the best thing they bought for efficiency and safety. 40-foot stick booms. It's an investment, but can you imagine not having to lug around all the scaffolding or all the ladders, having to move them around? And let me tell you about the horror stories of, you know, the brush marks. When you're using ladders, it looks terrible. And so booms really makes for a better quality product in the end too. If you're not, if you're so inclined to want to go faster, of course. Of course, I know some guys who brush really well. So who am I to judge?
You still got to get up there to brush.
I know, you do.
Yeah,
Any
for
other
us,
questions, guys?
no.
Travis.
I was saying for us, I mean, they're not like too expensive, you know, but the problem is just hauling them. But you know, I think it's just a numbers game with ladders on injuries. You know, you put enough guys on ladders for so many hours, like you're going to get an injury every year. So for us, you know, the booms is like the biggest thing. Now my guys are pretty lazy and they just bring that thing on an 8-foot wall, you know, but. Yeah.
What kind of booms are you running, Travis?
We got a couple 40s and then we got a Z45, which is like an articulating one for carports and, you know, and then off-road scissor. That's pretty doable for most folks to haul. And that thing's great. I mean, if you get a wall that you can put that up on and it extends out and it's like 12 feet of working platform, like it's awesome, especially for rot repair, stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, the biggest hurdle is the hauling. Like you need a CDL and it's not too difficult to get, but you know, you just get a big gooseneck and everything and good to go. And we put our compressor and usually we'll roll out with like a compressor, the boom on the gooseneck, and then another truck hauling a trailer, cargo trailer that does not look near as pretty as the pictures, but you know, then we just set up and get going. So
I think the kind of boom that he's describing is a counterweighted boom, correct?
yeah, it's a Genie S40.
Yeah, there's two schools of thought. Those types of booms have a huge counterweight to allow you to operate safely. The other system, the kind of lifts that we gravitate to are not counterweighted. They use sponson legs that come out on a 12 by 12 foot area and level. So we're carrying a lift that weighs 6,400 pounds or transporting it on just a standard double axle car trailer, even aluminum trailer. But those big counterweighted booms are, we can get more reach with those, but you do need a truck, serious truck to move them around. So point well taken.
Yeah.
And we talked to some people that just because of the terrain, like out west, it just doesn't make sense for them. You know, we have jobs we can't use a boom on, but it's just another tool in the tool belt.
The other thing was those with the nifty lifts like you use, Wayne, that I've encountered, because we've got up here where we're at, we got pretty steep terrain.
Yes.
Oftentimes we've got enough, we've run into where we can't even drive them because they don't have enough gumption to get up the hill. And then when you go to level them, they don't, there's not enough level in the legs.
Yes.
The other challenge with them is that you have to, when you move them, you got to fold them all down and get them all tucked back together to drive them around the corner. Whereas a counterweighted, you can drive them while you're in the air. So it's a little bit from a speed perspective. And I was all about the Nifties. We were going to buy one. Our rental place up here has a couple, and we were using them. But I found that they're not quite. I'm actually going to go to a Z-Boom.
Okay.
Like this other fellow was talking about, that we can sneak around a little bit better on.
Right. Yeah, we're going to have to go ahead.
The Nifty lift, my dad bought one of those actually, and he's had nothing but problems with that thing. Because another thing that kind of goes into this is like where you can get parts easily for minimizing downtime. I mean, that's like a huge thing for us is equipment breakdowns. So I try to buy like the best equipment I can get and everything. But in the end, you know, if you can't get a part same day or next day, like you're kind of out of luck. That's a huge delay usually.
Well, you know, you talk about that, but we have a contractor down in Arizona who took the tack of, I'm not blasting at all anymore. He partnered with another guy in the area who took over prep on all of his jobs because he was having a hard time. He was originally a painter by trade and had a hard time keeping the equipment up and training his guys just to get stain on the walls. And he just got frustrated by it to the point where he found a guy locally that he partners with who does all of his blasting for him. That's a legitimate way of reducing some of that waste for some people.
That's what we do, because we'll only do our exterior. We might do 2 or 3 log homes a year, and we'll do 2 or 3 regular sided homes. And so we're painters. We're not strictly log guys. So we've partnered with a blaster, and he does all of our prep for us.
Absolutely. Outsourcing is legit.
Well, yeah, just specialization, right? Like being able to do the same thing over and over again and getting good at it.
That's standardized, right? Well, guys, we're at 5 minutes past where we said we were going to go. If you have other questions, feel free to email them to us. All of our information is up here. That's Wayne's cell phone. So you can always get a hold of him there. This is my direct line. Maierhofer, I couldn't find your direct line. So this is
I was going to say, I don't know where you found that one. Let me correct that.
I couldn't find yours, but you can call the main line and ask for it.
Yeah, my direct line is 720-322-8223.
Yeah, we all just wanted to
That is correct.
We wanted to see you guys try to get past the gatekeeper. Darlene is vicious.
All right. So thanks for joining us. If you guys have anything else, let us know. We have one more webinar coming at you next week. Wayne and Nick and I are going to be diving in a little bit more into Wayne specifically. This was his idea. Some of the operational changes that they had to make last year in light of COVID, but also identifying key metrics. And I know that sounds like so boring. We're talking business and everything, but finding metrics that you can measure that will help drive improvement. And really, we're talking about that E in there, the engagement, the knowledge, skills, and abilities of your team. When you can get your whole team on board with helping you guys improve, that's the flywheel, and you really start getting things going faster. So hope you guys will plan to join us for that next week. We're recording that one again. Everybody have a great night. Go get some dinner, put your kids to bed wherever you happen to be in the world. And we'll hope to see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye all.
Bye.
Right.